She paid for a biker's gas without knowing his name by the next morning. Dozens of roaring engines pulled up to her home. It's not for trouble, but to repay a kindness the world had forgotten. Tamara Johnson was tired. Her eyes were heavy, and her body ached. She had just finished a long 12-hour shift at the hospital. As a nurse, her days were always full of pressure, sadness, and a lot of walking. But today felt even longer. One of her patients had passed away, and another had cried in her arms for hours. The hospital was short-staffed again, so she didn't even get a lunch break. Still, she did her job with care. That's just how Tamara was. She believed that being kind and strong at the same time was not a weakness, but a gift. As the sun began to set, she pulled into a small gas station just outside her neighborhood. Her son Malik was home with her cousin, and all she could think about was getting home, taking a shower, and resting for a few minutes before making dinner. She parked her old gray Honda and stepped out. Her scrubs were wrinkled, and her shoes felt like bricks on her feet. She grabbed her debit card and started pumping gas. As the tank slowly filled, she noticed a loud motorcycle pull up to the next pump. The engine was deep and thunderous, like something out of a movie. She glanced over. A huge man, wearing a thick leather jacket and ripped jeans, got off the bike. His long beard touched his chest, and tattoos covered both arms. But what caught her attention were the patches on his jacket. Red and white letters that spelled out something she had only seen in documentaries. Hell's Angels. Jumped a little, not out of fear exactly, but surprise. Hell's Angels were famous, but not always in a good way. Some people said they were violent, others said they were just misunderstood. She didn't know what to believe. But the man didn't look like a monster. He looked tired. He walked slowly to his pump, pulled out his wallet, and stared at it for a few seconds. Then he checked his pockets. His face changed. He looked frustrated, embarrassed, even nervous. Tamara tried not to stare, but it was hard not to notice. The man pulled out a few crumpled bills and some coins, counting them with his fingers. Then he walked into the gas station shop, maybe to see if he could pay part now and come back later. Tamara thought about walking away. It wasn't her problem. She had her own bills, her own life to worry about. But something inside her made her wait. When the man came back out, he looked defeated. He was about to get back on his bike without filling the tank. Tamara took a breath and called out softly, "Hey, sir, do you need some help?" The biker looked over, surprised. "Ma'am," he asked. "I can get your gas," she said simply. "It's okay." He stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to decide if it was a joke. Then he took a few steps closer. "Are you serious?" Tamara nodded. "Yeah, it's not a big deal." He looked like he didn't know what to say. "I ain't used to people doing stuff like that." She gave a small smile. "Well, I believe in kindness, that's all." The man nodded slowly. "Name's Mike. Big Mike. People call me." "Tamara," she replied. Mike still looked unsure, like his pride didn't want to accept it, but he finally said, "Thank you." His voice was rough but honest. Tamara walked to the screen and added her card to cover his pump. As the gas started flowing, Mike just stood there, watching her. "You didn't have to do that," he said again. "I know," Tamara replied, "but I wanted to." There was a strange silence for a moment. Not awkward, just powerful, as if something meaningful had happened in that quiet exchange. Mike looked around, then back at her. "You got a good heart, Miss Tamara." She smiled and shrugged. "Just trying to make it through the day like everyone else." After his tank was full, Mike walked up and shook her hand. His grip was strong, but he was careful not to hurt her. "I'll remember this," he said. "I mean it." Tamara laughed gently. "All right then. Just pay it forward someday." "I will," he said with a firm nod. She got back in her car, started the engine, and drove off, feeling strangely peaceful. It had been a hard day, but that small act made her feel human again. She didn't think much more about it. To her, it was just one more thing, like helping a patient eat or giving a blanket to someone cold. She didn't do it for attention. She didn't expect anything back. But someone had noticed at home Malik was playing video games in the living room. "You're late," he said without looking up. "I stopped for gas," Tamara replied, dropping her bag by the door. Want grilled cheese tonight? Yeah. She made dinner, helped him with homework, and later watched a few minutes of TV before falling asleep on the couch. She didn't think about the biker again. She didn't know that the next day her life would change in a way she never imagined. The morning sun rose quietly. Birds sang outside and Malik got ready for school. Tamara was still in pajamas, sipping weak coffee in the kitchen, when she heard something distant but deep. A rumbling. Then more, like thunder rolling closer. She looked out the window, her cup nearly dropped from her hand. 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 motorcycles. All black. All loud. All pulling up right outside her house. Her heart began to pound. "Mom," Malik called from the living room. "There's a gang outside." She rushed to the front door and opened it slowly. The street was full of bikers. They wore the same jackets. Hell's Angels. Their faces were serious. Some had sunglasses, others had wild beards. Her neighbors were already peeking out of their windows. A few people were filming. One old man was clearly calling the police. Tamara stood frozen. Then one of the bikers got off his bike and removed his helmet. It was Mike. He walked up the steps slowly and nodded. "Tamara, what's going on?" she asked, trying to stay calm. "We're here to say thank you." Behind him, all the other bikers nodded or raised a hand. Tamara blinked, unsure what to say. "You showed me respect. You helped me without knowing who I was." "Not a lot of people do that, especially when they see this patch," Mike said, pointing to his jacket. Tamara looked around. The street was quiet now, except for engines humming. She noticed one biker carrying a box. Another had tools. Her old car parked in the driveway hadn't started properly in weeks. "You didn't have to do anything," she said softly. "I know," Mike replied, "but neither did you, and here we are." For the first time in years, Tamara felt like someone saw her not just as a nurse, a mom, a retired woman trying to survive, but as a person who mattered. She didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. The world had changed overnight, and it had started with a simple gesture. Just a woman, paying for a stranger's gas. Tamara stood frozen at the door, her hand still on the doorknob, while the low growl of the motorcycles filled the air around her. The sound was heavy, like thunder, but it wasn't scary, it was powerful, strong. Every neighbor had stopped. What they were doing? Curtains twitched, blinds opened. People stared from porches, from balconies, even from parked cars. Our little street, usually so calm and quiet, looked like a scene out of a movie. It was hard to believe this was real. Malik stood behind her now, his eyes wide, clinging to her arm. "Mom, what's happening?" "Were they?" "They're here because of yesterday," she said slowly, almost whispering, her eyes still locked. On the group of men outside, Big Mike, the same biker from the gas station, stepped forward again, helmet under one arm, calm and serious. He wasn't smiling, but he didn't look angry either. His face was full of purpose. "I told you I'd remember," he said. "You helped me and my brothers wanted to help too." Tamara's eyes went from Mike to the line of bikers behind him. Each one looked different, some older, some younger. Some had long hair, others had none. Their jackets were black leather with the unmistakable red and white patches. Hell's Angels. Not just any bikers, these were men with reputations. I only seen them on TV or heard rumors, but here they were. In front of her home, her neighbors didn't know what to think. Some were already assuming the worst. A few of them had stepped outside, keeping their distance, trying to see if Tamara was in danger. Someone was recording with their phone. And in the back corner of her mind, Tamara could almost hear someone dialing the police. "Mike," she said carefully, trying to stay calm. "I really didn't do anything big. It was just gas." "You don't have to." He raised one big hand, gently stopping her words. "It wasn't just gas, Tamara." He turned around and motioned to the group. Another biker, taller than Mike and wearing sunglasses, walked forward. Carrying something. It was a grocery bag filled with fresh vegetables, bread, canned food, and a box of cereal. Behind him, two others stepped toward her old car, the one that had been giving her problems for weeks. They had toolkits in their hands. Tamara blinked. What is this? You helped a stranger when you didn't have to, Mike said. Our world, we call that honor. And we take care of people who show honor, Malik whispered. Are they going to fix your car, I think? They're doing more than that, she replied softly. One of the neighbors finally called out, Tamara, are you okay? It was Mrs. Jenkins from 2 houses down. She looked worried, even angry. Tamara nodded, speaking louder this time. Yes, everything is fine. But Mrs. Jenkins didn't look convinced. Neither did the others watching from a distance. People were nervous. That was clear. It's when people see bikers, especially those wearing jackets with Hell's Angels on them, they don't usually think thank you. They think trouble. Tamara stepped out onto her porch, Malik still holding her hand. She didn't feel scared anymore. Confused? Yes. Surprised, definitely. But not scared. You don't need to fix anything, she said again. I'm serious. I really appreciate it, but Mike looked directly at her. Tamara, do you know? How many people looked the other way when I stood there at that gas pump yesterday? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He continued, dozens. One lady turned her car around. A man laughed. Another one called the clerk and said not to let me inside. But you looked at me like I was human. Tamara swallowed, her throat dry. That simple sentence hit hard. Mike stepped a little closer, but not too close. We're not here to scare you. We're here to show you that your kindness matters. We don't forget when someone does right. The biker at her car had popped the hood and was already examining the engine. Another man walked back to his bike and returned with 2 brand new tires. Malik's mouth dropped open. Are they really going to fix it? Mike chuckled. It'll run smoother than new when we're done. The grocery bag was placed gently by her front steps. There was even a small box of cookies in there. Malik noticed and whispered, they got my favorite ones. Tamara looked at the group again. Some were leaning on their bikes, watching with calm eyes. No one spoke unless they had something helpful to say. It wasn't chaos. It was organized, respectful. They weren't here to create a scene. They were here to honor her. Quiet but powerful thank you. And yet the neighborhood didn't know what to make of it. She could hear someone still talking on the phone behind a window. Someone else pointed their phone camera directly at her house. Felt like 2 stories were happening at once. Inside her heart, something beautiful was unfolding. But outside, judgment was thick in the air. A police car turned the corner minutes later, driving slowly. Someone had definitely called. Tamara stepped down from her porch and walked calmly toward the officer. The cop rolled down his window. Ma'am, we got a call about a possible gang situation? Tamara smiled, polite but firm. No gang situation. Officer, just some friends visiting. The officer looked at the row of bikes, his eyes pausing on the patches. Friends, huh? Yes, she said. Friends who are helping me? Big Mike stepped up beside her. Everything's peaceful, sir. We're not here to cause trouble. The officer's face was stiff. You could tell he didn't believe it right away. Tamara stood tall, strong, confident. The officer nodded slowly. All right, just keep it quiet, of course, Tamara said. The cop drove away, still glancing back in the mirror. Tamara turned back to the porch. Her neighbors were watching, whispering. She knew what they were thinking. She knew that tomorrow some of them might talk behind her back. But right now, that didn't matter. What mattered was that her old car was getting fixed. Her son was smiling. And someone she helped when no one else would was standing there, making good on a promise. Mike walked back to her and said softly, You ever need something, you call me, no matter what. Tamara looked into his eyes. There was no lie there, just truth. Pure, rare, and raw. She nodded slowly. Thank you. He handed her a folded paper. My number's in there. Don't be a stranger. The group finished their work quietly. 2 of them swept up the mess from the tools. One biker took all the old engine parts and packed them up neatly. They didn't leave behind oil stains or trash. They left behind something deeper, respect. As the engine started again, Malik ran to the porch. Wait, can I see one of the bikes? Mike grinned. Hop on. Just sit, don't touch the throttle. Malik climbed on carefully, his eyes wide. With excitement. This is so cool. Tamara laughed, for the first time in days. Finally, One by one, the bikers rode off. The loud engines rolled back down the street, past the shocked neighbors, the phones, the whispers. But this time, something was different. A few neighbors even nodded. One man, who had been peeking from behind his car, gave a small wave. Tamara stood at the edge of her yard and watched them disappear. When the last bike turned the corner, the street became quiet again. She looked around. People were still staring, still confused, still unsure. But inside her chest, her heart was full. Malik hugged her waist. "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen?" Tamara ran a hand over his curls and smiled. "Yeah, it kind of was." That night, as she cleaned up after dinner, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Tamara, thanks again. You reminded me people still care. You ever need anything, just call." Mike, she stared at the message for a long time. Then she saved the number. Not because she expected to use it, but because it felt right. Later, she sat on the porch watching the stars. The car in the driveway looked cleaner, newer, like someone had brought it back to life. Malik was asleep inside, dreaming about motorcycles. No doubt Tamara thought about how one small moment, one choice to be kind, had caused all of this. It hadn't cost her much, just a tank of gas and a smile. But in return, she got something. Priceless, respect, and maybe a few unlikely friends. She had no idea this story wasn't over yet. Tomorrow would bring even more surprises. Tamara couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened.
The image of those motorcycles parked in front of her house.
The sound of engines and the eyes of every neighbor watching her was all still so fresh in her mind. But what stuck with her the most wasn't the noise or the attention. It was the quiet respect in the way those bikers behaved. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't boast. They came to thank her and help her. That night, while Malik slept peacefully, Tamara sat by the window with a cup of tea. She kept replaying Mike's words. "You helped me when nobody else would. We don't forget that." In the morning, the sun shone brightly. She felt like she was waking up in a different world. Her car, which had been a constant source of stress, now started with just one turn of the key. The engine didn't make that coughing sound anymore. Malik even said, "Mom, the car sounds happier today," and she couldn't help but laugh. At work, Tamara shared a little bit of the story with her coworkers. Most of them were shocked. "Wait, real Hell's Angels?" asked Clara, another nurse. "Yeah, they showed up on my street. Like, a lot of them." "And you weren't scared?" little Tamara admitted. "But they were respectful, gentle even." Clara shook her head. "That's crazy. Sounds like something from a movie." Tamara just smiled. It did feel like a movie, but it was real. And deep inside, she could sense it wasn't over yet. Later that afternoon, she was folding laundry when her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, and that same deep voice filled her ear. "Tamara." "It's Mike." "Hi," she said, surprised. "Everything okay?" "More than okay. Listen, I was thinking, you got time this weekend?" Tamara paused. "I think so." "Why?" "We're doing something, and I want you to see it. Don't worry, it's not weird. Just something good." She hesitated for a second, but something in Mike's tone told her it was important. "All right," she said. "Just let me know when and where." Mike chuckled. "You got it?" Saturday morning, Mike sent her an address. It wasn't far, just outside of town. She and Malik drove there, following the directions. As they turned off the main road, Tamara saw a large open lot filled with motorcycles, tents, and people. There was music playing, kids running around, and a grill smoking in the background. "This doesn't look like a gang meeting," Malik said, from the passenger seat. "Why, died?" "No," Tamara said. "It looks like a block party." When she parked and stepped out, people waved. Mike appeared out of nowhere, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, no jacket today. He looked more like a dad than a biker now. "Tamara." "Malik," he said with a big grin. "Glad you came." "What is all this?" she asked. Mike led them through the crowd. "Every year our chapter does something like this. Food drives, toy giveaways, car repairs for single moms. People don't always see this side of us, but it's real. We don't just ride, we give back. Tamara looked around. Tables were lined with donated clothes and canned food. There was a small stage where someone was giving a speech about community unity. Volunteers were passing out sandwiches. A group of bikers was fixing an old woman's wheelchair near a tent. "You do all this every year?" she asked, amazed. "Yeah," Mike said. "But this year, it's different. This year we had a reason to go bigger. You." She turned to him, shocked. "Me." Mike nodded. "Tamara, you reminded us why we do this? When you helped me at the gas station, you didn't know who I was. You didn't care what patch I wore. You just saw a person. That kind of thing, it matters." One of the bikers came up to them and handed Malik a backpack. "Here you go, little man. School supplies. Top of the line." Malik looked at his mom in disbelief. "This is better than anything we bought." Tamara's heart swelled. Wasn't used to being the center of attention. She had always worked hard, stayed quiet, and tried not to ask for anything. But here she was, being celebrated. For a small act she didn't even think twice about. "Come meet the others," Mike said. They walked over to a group of older bikers. Under a tent, one of them had a long gray beard and dark glasses. He shook Tamara's hand firmly. "You're the woman who changed Mike's whole mood," he said. "That's no small thing." Another biker nodded. "You see so much hate in the world. So many people just look out for themselves. But you gave something without expecting anything back. That's what our world's missing." Tamara didn't know what to say. She felt tears forming, but she blinked them back. They handed her a small plaque. It read, "To Tamara Johnson, a reminder that kindness is the strongest kind of courage." She held it in her hands, stunned. People clapped softly around her. Mike put a hand on her shoulder. "You're part of the family now, not by patch, but by heart." She looked at the group, and for the first time, didn't see bikers. She saw brothers, uncles, fathers, men who had lived hard lives, but had hearts full of loyalty and code. Later, as the event went on, Malik played with other kids, riding a small donated bicycle. Tamara sat with Mike under a tree, watching. "You?" "No," she said. "I didn't do much." Mike shook his head. "You did more than you think. People judge us every day. They cross the street, lock their car doors. Treat us like we're dangerous. But you didn't. You saw me. You made me feel seen." Tamara nodded slowly. "I know what that feels like, to be judged before you even speak." Mike looked at her, understanding. "Yeah, you do." Sat in silence for a while, letting the breeze carry their thoughts. "I used to be a different person," Mike said finally. "Got into bad stuff. Fights. Jail. But I changed. In this brotherhood, these guys, they helped me find purpose. That's why what you did hit so hard. Reminded me why we try." Tamara looked at him. "You've come a long way. So have you," he said. "You raised a good kid. You work hard. You keep going, even when life knocks you down." Smiled. "I guess we're not that different." "Nope," he agreed. "It's different uniforms." By the end of the day, the sun had started to dip. Malik didn't want to leave, but Tamara promised they'd visit again. As they walked back to their car, more bikers waved, and people smiled. She didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She felt like part of something strong and rare. Back at home that night, Tamara placed the plaque on her kitchen shelf. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't fancy, but it meant more than any award she had ever gotten. Malik sat at the table, looking through his new school supplies. "Mom, do you think Mike would teach me to ride a bike like his someday?" Tamara laughed. "Maybe if you finish all your homework first." He grinned. "Deal." Like that night. Before bed, she got another message from Mike. "Tamara, today was a good day. You gave us a reason to believe again." "Thank you," she typed back. "No, thank you. You reminded me that good people still exist even in leather jackets." She turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling. It was strange how life worked. A small moment, a $20 gas fill-up, A tired woman who didn't look away. And now here she was, wrapped in something real, something deep, something bigger than she ever imagined. She didn't know what would happen next, but she was no longer alone. The world had noticed her, and the Hell's Angels had answered with heart. Tamara's story was no longer just hers. In a small town where nothing big usually happened, everyone was now talking about her. From neighbors whispering at the mailbox to kids pointing at her car and saying, "That's the lady the bikers came for." Her life had quietly become the center of attention. Some people smiled when they saw her, some avoided eye contact, and others, well, they weren't sure what to think, but Tamara didn't care much about what people were saying anymore. She was living with a new kind of confidence, not because she had done something huge, but because she had been reminded that one small action could mean everything. And even though her neighborhood had judged her at first, something was beginning to shift. A few days after the biker gathering, Tamara was walking home from work. As she passed by a small convenience store, she noticed a man standing outside with a broken shopping cart. He looked upset, embarrassed, and tired. For a second, she remembered Mike at the gas station. She stepped forward and offered to help. The man didn't know who she was, but he smiled and said thank you. That was enough for her. When she got home, Malik was already on the porch, waiting with an excited grin. "Mom, you won't believe it? Someone from the newspaper came by. They said they want to talk to you." Tamara raised her eyebrows. "Newspaper? Yeah, about the bikers," said. "The whole town's talking." Later that evening, a young reporter named Jenna knocked on the door. She was polite, nervous, and carrying a small notepad. "I heard something amazing happened here," she said, "and I think people need to hear your side of it." Tamara thought for a moment. She wasn't sure if she wanted more attention, but she also realized how powerful the story was, how it had already changed so many things. She invited Jenna in, made her some tea, and told her everything. From the tired day at the gas station, to Mike showing up with a dozen motorcycles, to the community event that followed. Jenna wrote quickly, her eyes wide the entire time. "That's incredible," she whispered. "You didn't expect anything? You just helped." "That's what made it real," Tamara said. "No cameras, no praise, just people helping people." A week later, the story was printed. The headline read, "Nurse's Act of Kindness Sparks Unlikely Friendship with Hell's Angels." It went viral in the town. Then it spread online. People from other cities started sharing it. Strangers sent letters. A few even dropped gifts at her door, flowers, cards, and once a hand-knitted scarf with a note that said, "Thank you for reminding us that kindness still matters." But not everyone was happy. One evening, as Tamara was walking out of the grocery store, a woman she barely knew approached her. Her voice was cold. "You know, those men have a past, right? You're letting your son around people like that?" Tamara paused, her hand tightening around the grocery bag. She didn't want to argue, but something in her heart refused to stay silent. "Yes," she said softly. "They do have a past, so do a lot of people. But I judge them by what they did when they had a choice to do good, and they chose kindness." The woman scoffed and walked away. But Tamara stood a little taller, because every time someone doubted her, there were 10 others who sent warmth, support, or even their own stories of kindness. One afternoon, as she and Malik were walking through the park, a young girl ran up to her with her mother trailing behind. "Are you the lady from the newspaper?" the girl asked. Tamara smiled. "I guess I am. And my mommy said you helped a big man with tattoos, and then he helped you back." "That's so cool." Tamara bent down. "Kindness comes back to you when you least expect it." The mother nodded. "Thank you for showing that." But the biggest surprise came when the local news channel called, "We'd like to do a segment on your story. Maybe even film a small reunion with you and the bikers," said the producer. Tamara hesitated. "I'm not trying to be famous." "It's not about fame," the woman replied. "It's about hope. The people are tired of bad news. Your story gives them something good." A few days later, Mike and some of the bikers returned, not with engines roaring this time, but with quiet smiles and casual clothes. They met at a local community center where cameras were already set up. Malik wore his best shirt and stood proudly beside Mike. The interview was emotional. I was broke, tired, Didn't know how I'd make it home, Mike said, recalling the day at the gas station. Then this woman, this complete stranger, showed me a kind of grace I hadn't seen in years, Tamara added. I just saw someone who needed help. Nothing else mattered. After the segment aired, the town changed even more. Some of the neighbors who once stared or gossiped began waving at her. One even came over with a pie and an apology. I was wrong, the neighbor said. I judged without knowing. I'm sorry. Tamara smiled and hugged her. It takes courage to admit that. Thank you. Soon, other families started opening up too. Inspired by her story, a few people began organizing neighborhood cleanups. One woman started a free tutoring program for kids. A group of teenagers began collecting clothes for the homeless. Something inside the town had shifted. People were remembering how to care, how to look past fear, how to be human again. Tamara never asked for any of it, but she welcomed it. Even the mayor invited her to speak at a small-town event. I'm not a public speaker, Tamara said nervously. But you are a powerful voice, the mayor replied. Your story reminds us what community really means. When she stood on that small wooden stage, microphone shaking in her hand, she looked out at faces black. White, old, young, familiar, and new. I didn't do anything special, she began. I just helped someone fill his gas tank. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's the small things that change everything. People clapped. Some stood. Even Mike wiped his eyes quietly in the back. After the event, Malik hugged her tightly. You're amazing, Mom. She kissed his forehead. I just try to do what's right. But deep down, Tamara knew something had happened. Something bigger than her. She had become a symbol of simple courage. And that came with a quiet kind of responsibility. So she kept going. Every weekend, she volunteered at a local shelter. It's not for attention, just because it felt right. She brought Malik with her sometimes, and together they handed out food, clothes, and hope. Mike and the bikers stayed in touch. Sometimes they dropped by just to say hello. Sometimes they helped fix things in the neighborhood. One time they protected a local family that was being harassed, quietly, without asking for anything, and slowly. The town's fear of them faded. People began to see them not as threats, but as protectors, as men with rough stories, but real hearts. One day Tamara found a letter in her mailbox. No return address, just a folded paper inside. It said, I used to think people like me didn't deserve help. But your story changed that. Thank you for giving people like us a chance to believe in goodness again. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she read those words. It was never just about gas. It was never just about one biker. It was about seeing someone clearly, without judgment. And acting with love, Tamara didn't expect praise. She didn't expect her town to change, but it did. Because one small flame of kindness had lit a fire in a place where people had almost forgotten how to care. Now, no one looked at her the same. Not because she was famous, but because she had reminded them that even in the darkest places, goodness could still shine. Tamara never thought that one small act of kindness would bring so much change, not just in her life, but in the lives of everyone around her. It had started with a simple gesture, paying for a stranger's gas. She didn't expect anything in return. She never imagined that the man she helped would turn out to be a Hell's Angel, or that a group of bikers would later ride into her quiet neighborhood to thank her in a way that the whole town would remember. But now, weeks after it all began, Tamara could feel something had shifted, not just outside, in the neighborhood and in people's opinions, but inside her too. She had always believed in kindness, in doing the right thing. But for the first time in a long while, she felt that. Her kindness had actually mattered. It had reached further than she could see. It wasn't over yet. One Saturday morning, Tamara was sitting on her porch with a notebook in her lap. She wasn't a writer, but she had started jotting down her thoughts, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Malik was inside, making pancakes, and the sweet smell drifted out through the open windows. She was halfway through a sentence when she heard the now familiar rumble of motorcycle engines. She looked up with a soft smile. This time, there were only 5 bikes. It was Mike and a few of his brothers from the Hells Angels chapter. They weren't wearing full gear today, just casual clothes and a few patches. The neighbors barely reacted anymore. The bikers had become a part of the neighborhood in their own quiet way. Mike waved as he stepped off his bike. "Morning, Tamara." "Morning, Mike. You want some pancakes?" He laughed. "Only if they're Moloch's." Moloch ran out just then with a plate in his hand. "I made extra." They all sat on the porch steps, enjoying the morning sun and the simple breakfast. After a few minutes of quiet eating and joking, Mike cleared his throat. "We've been talking," he said slowly. "The guys and we've decided we want to do more." Tamara looked at him curiously. "More?" "Yeah," he nodded. "We want to start something. Something bigger than just us. A community program. Maybe even a charity." "A charity?" Moloch said, eyes wide. Mike smiled. "Yeah, something like that. A group that helps people, single moms, veterans, folks who need groceries, students who need supplies. We've done little things here and there, but now we want to make it official. With a name, a mission." Tamara felt her heart beat faster. "And you want me to be part of it?" "What?" Mike looked at her seriously. "Tamara, you're the reason we're even having this conversation. You reminded us who we are. Not just bikers, not just tough guys, but people who can do good. You gave that to us." She was quiet for a moment, overwhelmed. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." They spent the rest of the morning planning. They came up with ideas: food drives, free oil changes for struggling families, neighborhood watch support, scholarships for local teens. They decided to call it Fuel the Heart, inspired by Tamara's small act at the gas station. The word spread fast. A local community center offered a meeting room. Graphic designer volunteered to create a logo. Tamara's hospital co-workers offered to run a small health camp. Mike and his biker brothers started collecting donations, not money, but things people needed: blankets, clothes, shoes, food, school bags. And something amazing happened. People who were once afraid of the bikers started joining them. An old man who used to glare from his porch now helped them pack supplies. A mother who once clutched her child when the bikers rode by was now making sandwiches for their weekend events. Even the local pastor invited them to speak at the church, at one event. Tamara stood in front of a crowd of nearly 200 people, families, students, neighbors, bikers. She looked out at the faces and felt tears form in her eyes. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice shaking a little. "When I paid for that gas tank, I didn't do it for attention. I just saw someone who looked like they needed help, and now, here we are. You all remind me that the world is still full of good people, people willing to care, people willing to change." The crowd clapped. Mike stood beside her, smiling with pride. After the event, a teenage girl approached Tamara with her mom. She looked nervous, but determined. "Miss Tamara," she said, "I wanted to say thank you. My dad left a long time ago, and it's just been me and my mom. We don't always have enough. But last week we got groceries from your group. And I just wanted to say I'm not ashamed anymore. You made me feel seen." Tamara hugged her tightly. "You're never alone, sweetheart. Never." Moments like these became more common. People from other towns began reaching out. Other biker groups, even some who were once rivals, heard the story and wanted to be part of the kindness movement. It was no longer just about Tamara or the Hells Angels. It had grown into something powerful, a wave of good, born from something so small. Tamara's house, once just a quiet place on a regular street, now had people stopping by almost every day, sometimes to donate, sometimes to ask for help, sometimes just to say thank you. And she welcomed them all. One morning, she woke up to find a small box on her porch. Inside was a patch knot from the Hells Angels, but something new: a heart surrounded by wings. The words "honor through kindness" embroidered on it. There was a note: "You may not ride with us, but you ride with us in spirit. This is our way of saying you're family." She held the patch to her heart and closed her eyes. It was never about patches. It was never about bikes. It was about what people did when no one was watching, about choosing compassion when judgment would have been easier. Tamara's journey had taught her something important, that even the smallest choice could echo in ways you couldn't imagine, that people could change, that even those with the roughest pasts could carry the softest hearts. And above all, she had learned that the world didn't need more noise. It needed more quiet acts of bravery, more people, willing to stop, look, and say, I see you. I care. I'll help. Months later, Tamara sat under the same tree where she had first spoken with Mike during the community event. The sun was setting, the sky turning orange and purple. Malik sat beside her, sketching in his notebook. Mom, he said, I want to start a club at school. Like your group. What kind of club? A kindness club. It can help kids who feel left out. Bring food for someone who forgot their lunch. Stuff like that. Tamara smiled, her heart full. That sounds perfect. Mike arrived a few minutes later and sat beside them. Guess what, he said. Fuel the Heart is officially a nonprofit now. We're legal. Tamara laughed. You're a real charity man now. Hey, he chuckled. People change. They all sat there quietly, listening to the birds, the wind, and the gentle sounds of life all around. It had started with a gas pump, but it ended with something much greater, a reminder to the world that kindness is never wasted, even if no one notices, even if it costs you something. Because one day, you least expect it, that kindness might come roaring back to you. ... on two wheels with leather jackets and hearts bigger than anyone ever knew.